This week's bulletin I wrote about the chaos of the sea, focusing in on today's gospel reading we just heard. Today in this homily, I'd like to focus in on another wonder of nature, mountains, with an eye towards our first reading that was from the first book of Kings. I love mountains. They fascinate me. I look at them and I just want to say, good job, God. Sometimes I feel the power and the strength of a mountain representing God watching over his world. Elijah went up to a mountain to look for God. The particular mountain he went to was the mountain of the Lord, Horeb. This mountain is also called Mount Sinai. You remember Sinai, right? That was the mountain where Moses received the Ten Commandments. Remember how Sinai was presented in the book of Exodus? In Exodus 19, Mount Sinai was wrapped in smoke because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and the smoke of it went up like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain quaked greatly. Or in Exodus 24, the glory of the Lord settled on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it for 6 days, and on the seventh day he called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Now the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on the top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. It was on Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, that Moses received the Ten Commandments, written, as Exodus says, with the finger of God. This was the mountain that Elijah was on in the first reading for this Sunday. Elijah had been told by a voice to go and present yourself on the mountain of the Lord, for the Lord will be passing by. Elijah went and waited for the awe-inspiring presence of God. As he must have expected, there was a huge wind that blew boulders around like pebbles. But Elijah, the prophet of supreme faith, did not sense the presence of the Lord in the wind. Then there was an earthquake. But Elijah's faith told him that the Lord was not in the earthquake. Fire followed, perhaps started by lava flowing through the fissures created by the earthquake, or perhaps due to volcanic activity. We all know how powerful a raging fire is. But Elijah's faith told him that the Lord was not in the fire. Then there was a tiny whispering sound. The voice was the voice of the Lord. It was more powerful than the wind, the earthquake, or the fire. The voice was the voice of faith. Sometimes we look for the Lord with preconceived notions on how he should appear. We expect to find him in some powerful manifestation of his presence. Sometimes we're so concerned with finding him in a mighty display of natural events that we actually miss his presence in the quiet, whispering sound of faith. We seek the Lord in powerful miracles, but we miss hearing his voice in our children, our families, our church community. Perhaps we've got to stop determining how God should be and simply be open to his presence wherever he is, in others and even in ourselves. We have to let God be God, mysterious, loving, present in more ways than we could ever understand. We have all heard people say, I come to church, but I get nothing out of it. Maybe we've said that ourselves at times, or at least felt that way. Perhaps the problem is that we're deciding how God should be present instead of opening ourselves up to him however he's manifesting himself. Maybe we're looking for feelings of spiritual satisfaction, but perhaps today God might not be in the fire or in warm fuzzies. Maybe we're seeking the answer to one of our problems, but perhaps today God might not be in the earthquake or in an instant solution to our difficulties. Maybe we're looking into new insights into our lives, but perhaps today the Lord might not be in the wind breaking the boulders of our self-perception, but the Lord is still here. He's always with us. We might not know where he is, but we know that he is. He is here. For there's a small voice that says he is the reason for everything that is around us, in our church and in our world. From the crucifix over the altar, to the Word of God proclaimed, to the Eucharist we share, to the blessing that we ask before we take our food, to the evening prayers we say, and the bedtime prayers with our children, to the beauty of our babies, to the marvels of nature. Everything radiates the presence of God. He is within each of us, loving us as individuals and uniting us to the community of love. If we come to Mass and claim that we're not getting anything out of it, if we go through life claiming that we cannot find God, it's because we're looking for God where we expect him to be, not where he is. How is it that Elijah heard the tiny whispering sound in the middle of the roar of the wind, the crashing of rocks, the earthquake? He settled himself down. He suppressed his own expectations, and he let God speak to him as God chose to speak to him. There is noise around us. We're so accustomed to it that we hardly notice it. We may be living near a busy road, but we tend to tune out the traffic. We may even be able to tune out Mr. and Mrs. Loud and their loud children who live next door to us. We tend to tune out external noise, but we don't make as much of an effort to tune out the internal noise. We let our thoughts ramble during prayer. We let our minds fly attempting to solve a problem. We need to quiet ourselves down. We need to free ourselves for quiet time. This is more than freedom from external noise. We need to allow ourselves to experience internal quiet and peace that comes from being in the presence of God. And that's the simple message of our first reading. God is present for each of us. He speaks to each of us. We just need to do a better job of listening. And after the earthquake, there was a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was a tiny whispering sound. When he heard this, Elijah hid his face in his cloak and went and stood at the entrance of the cave. God bless you now.